chapter of GMS International. It appears as though we have maybe have a few people who have connectivity issues. We currently have 30 participants in this virtual business meeting. And what I would like to do is just go ahead and proceed through our agenda. If anyone joins us later, we'll try to catch them up. So currently, you should have before you in an email the minutes that were presented from the spring business meeting for June of 2020. And if we could, we'd like to get a motion in a second to pass those business meetings minutes. That's Ben Brinkman. Motions to approve.
Second.
Okay, I heard Chris first. Chris Addix second. Is there any discussion or additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor of approval, raise your hand. Opposed likewise? This is unanimous. All right, so Clark, if you would please take us forward with our current financials.
Okay, let me know when, hopefully you can see this. This is also sent out on the attachment that Tiffany sent out. This is our statement of cash flows. This is a report that we prepare for our annual taxes. So this is at the end of June 2020. Basically, this is a total amount of cash on hand was $200,746.08. From this conference, I was going to summarize real quickly, but basically our expenses for this conference are going to be about $30,000. We had a total revenue of about $14,200. So from this conference's standpoint, today in cash, in terms of after revenue and all that stuff, we have about 205 and some change thousand in the bank. Total expenses will be about $30,000 at the end of the day. A lot of this CG, LGCIO revenue and Geek Track revenue is actually held by UGA, and that just becomes, they subtract that amount from the bill that they bill us back for their services throughout the conference. That's where we are with that piece. The other picture that we show each year is the profit and loss for the year. So this is July 2019 through June of 2020. You can see we took in a total of $137,665. We had expenses for the year of $93,339.57, with net income of $44,325.43. So we had a pretty good year, but if we go back to mentioning the conference that we're in now, the last conference and most likely the next conference or two, is that we expect to sustain some losses on those conferences just to continue to provide consistency in the programs and what our memberships come to expect. And with that, Brett, I think we're ready to. If there's any questions, I guess we'll take questions.
One question. I think $100 for the conference is excellent. I don't know what everybody else feels, but if we do another virtual one, just to recoup some expense, I think we could go up a little bit on that.
Okay.
Any other feedback on that question and comment from anyone?
I kind of agree. I mean, it's nice to get into it on the cheap, but we want to keep the organization working as well. My budget didn't change, even though I can't go to the conference. So I think we could increase it a little bit and still have people able to participate.
So Chris, do you in your mind know what you think a fair rate would be?
No.
Okay, does anybody have a comment about what they think a fair rate would be?
I don't
No,
remember what the original amount is, but what is the original conference? The cost?
Normally the rate that we've been charging is $500 for an in-person conference. And that's, keep in
I
mind,
wouldn't see why you wouldn't just divide it in half.
Well, I think part of it also, remember, is the board's position, I think during that discussion was, we want as many people to continue to participate even if their budgets went down. And it was just some way of saying, hey, let's keep this going, even if the individual departments or individual budgets had an issue. We tried to do everything we could to take a little hit in the short term so that people could continue being together and learning. But to everybody's
That's
point,
right, but we also got to remember we're not paying for hotels, we're not paying for all of that, so there's your savings. So like we said earlier, we got to keep the organization afloat. So I think a 50% decrease is a really good decrease.
I would agree with that. Something around the $200 mark, just so we can, when we do get back together, we're not operating in the red.
Right.
I concur. I think that, you know, I was lucky enough that none of the conference type or educational budget was cut. So we're blessed for that, to have that in here.
And another thing to think about as well is if we do this $100 thing for a couple more conferences and then we try to go back to, I think you said $500. Well, now are we going to have our upper management saying, well, you've been paying $100, why are you paying $500 now? No, you can't go anymore. It's too much of an increase. So that's something to think about as well.
My concern is the vendors. I'd love to hear what their feedback was after this conference, although they paid for the former conference and we rolled that over into this one. Vendors are the key player in us being able to do everything. And I certainly have no problem in increasing our amount. Just like you say, I want to continue this. But so vendor response would be informational part.
Yeah. I had difficulty, using the vendor, whatever we called it, speed dating or whatever. And I, my guy, Dan, also had the same difficulty. I think I liked the idea of having, those time slots and that way the vendor knew that they had an audience and they only had to go through their spiel once, but it didn't function. And I'm curious as to whether they felt like they got any real value out of this.
Right. I look forward to their feedback because some people actually, like I was able to connect with every vendor I attempted to, and some vendors only allowed one person in to talk with them. Some vendors, there were multiple attendees, and the only one I could not connect with was Comcast, and that's because their session was locked out. So, and I did not try to meet with them the second day. I don't know if anybody else was successful the second day. Karen was. So it appears as though some of us had issues and some of us did not. And I do agree, we should look into how to make that more of a seamless, almost a guaranteed connection. And we've had some discussions about maybe managing it different rather than allowing the vendors to manage it, come up with a better solution for managing who is in, and maybe know a little more about what the vendors' expectations are, because I didn't expect to be the only person meeting with a vendor a one-on-one session, and that happened to me twice. So
Yeah,
I think we need to discuss that.
Brad, I think that, I know we're supposed to be talking about finances right now, but I think, I don't know, my thought would be to rather have us go to the vendor, have the vendor come to us during certain times where we all stay in the same room.
Right. We actually have talked about that, and I think that's a good idea. Yes. So if there's is there any other discussion about Clark's presentation and the financials? Okay, can we get a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
So we have a motion by Ben and a second by Jason. Is there any further discussion about the approval of the current financials?
Other
Okay, all
than
those,
us,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? I see no opposed. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to the next item Steve will work with us on, and that's the bylaw changes. Steve, do you need me to preface any of this, or are you gonna preface how we got to this being an item on our agenda?
Well, let's see where we go, and I welcome any outside feedback.
Okay,
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Steve Sykes, first vice president. The board had a wonderful board retreat where we went through and were able to do various updates, trying to bring us into as professional of an organization as possible. And one of those things we realized, besides dealing with mission statements and all that you might be familiar with, is that our bylaws had not been updated in some time. And so what we did was review the bylaws, and we made some updates to try to better clarify some of the sections. And if those of you that you would have received the bylaws yesterday in an email, there was an added section under Article 6 Officers, Section 2. There was an added section to establish criteria to be a Georgia GEMIS board member. It was kind of always that way, but never really was clarified in writing. So it's now there in the bylaws for your review and for us to vote on. That covers a number of things. Brett, should I go through those individually, or you have an
yeah, well, I mean, when I'm looking at it, it's not gonna take a lot of time to go over the changes. I mean,
yeah,
I think it would be appropriate to do so.
initially there's a section for attributes of an individual that we want them to be able to be innovative with ideas and concepts. They must be friendly with people and people oriented and exude a friendly demeanor, so that the board exudes a professional and friendly manner to everyone. Must be able to show flexibility when needed. The knowledge and experience must have the knowledge of GEMIS history and functions. So that kind of involves you having been in GEMIS for a while. Must know the vision and mission of Georgia GEMIS. Now, we're not looking for you to be able to quote those necessarily, but the most involvement that you can. Competencies, you must have a minimum of 5 to 7 years in technology experience. A must-have LGCIO certification, CGCIO is preferred. We've been offering this wonderful continuing education opportunity, and many folks have already gone through this. And the LG is, Mike may even elaborate. LG is not that hard to do. 60 hours of conferences, and then write a project paper. And if Steve Sykes can pull it off, I know all of you can.
Steve, let me just jump in. In terms of the LG, we have quite a few members that have the required hours, the leadership track and the technical track. The only thing between that member and the certification is the project and then ultimately the project report. The report should be the least of the challenging of those two. Obviously, creating and pulling off the project can be significant, and the report. But back to the original point, lots and lots of our members have the hours. It's just the project and the report that is between them and certification.
So just for everybody to know a general idea of how many people could finish their LGCIO, do you know how many people have met the requirements except for the written report?
I would have to get together with Tiffany to come up with an exact number, but the last time we looked was probably a year to maybe 15 months ago. And so if we add hours that folks have accumulated between the last time we looked at what's in the way, I would say that there's easily 35 to 40 members that have the hours, and the only thing that's remaining is the project.
Right.
In other words,
Wow.
it's not a small number, Brett. It's not, 10 or 12 kind of a thing. It's not 50 or 60 either, but it's a pretty substantial number.
Right. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
And moving, and then also one of the
Steve,
things.
do you want us to comment on these as we go, or let you finish and comment?
Well, let's finish reviewing those. Maybe
Okay.
there's only the four more, and then we can come back if you whatever we
Okay.
wish to do.
All right.
One of the other attributes was competencies must be a team player. You've got to be able to fit in and try to look at the big picture and what's needed for the organization. Accountability must be an active Georgia GMIS member. You need a letter from your supervisor approving your commitment, because folks, remember, it's a 5-year commitment to be on the board, and we need new people with new eyes. I'm using the old Gallagher thing, to be able to see things with new eyes and have new perspectives to help keep this organization moving forward. Must have an attendance record, 3 out of 4 consecutive CGLG CIO conferences, and volunteer in at least a couple of conferences. We would ask for folks to help bring things in, help set up stuff, and it's always been a blessing to get the volunteers to help out or distribute materials in conferences. And I do look forward to in-person conferences. Must be able to attend bi-weekly conference calls. Must participate in strategic initiatives of the Georgia GMIS Board. So from that section, all of which were to describe the, if I can get back to it, I'm sorry, the criteria for the GMIS Board member. Do we have comments on that particular section too?
I've got a couple. Under competencies, I think if we're gonna put a year, we need to say, do we want a minimum of 5 or a minimum of 7? Not a minimum of 5 to 7. What was the other thing? There was one more on that one. Should we add in there that it's required that you're a manager or have been a manager of some sort, or are we going to allow a technician to come in from our geek track and get on the board? Either way, it doesn't matter, just a thought.
Yeah.
On accountability, are we saying that that's accountability that needs to be before or after you're elected? Because that's, it reads both ways to me in there. So I think we need to go one way or the other.
Okay, well, I think that the first point you made, Jeremy, the 5 to 7 years is a valid point, that it's, ambiguous, and I would be willing to change that if without objection to a 5-year minimum.
I'm
Is
good
there
with
any
5 years.
objection? Is there anybody have an objection to changing that to 5 years? Okay. And so I think one of your other comments, which is probably something that should be discussed, is I think it's good to have some variability in the board, and maybe there are people who are current in skill levels who are not in a managerial position that might be beneficial to the board to have that on there. That's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't think it would be necessary that you're a manager or a department head to be on the board. What does everybody else think about that?
So I agree with you, Brent. If we're going to be a diverse group and have diverse opinions and diverse representations, I don't think we pigeonhole ourselves for that. I think we should be able to be inclusive of everybody that's in technology in whatever role they're in if they qualify.
You're already
agree with that.
requiring to have the LG CIO, which means they've been through management tracks. So, even if they are
That's a good
primarily a technician, they're getting some of that management training.
All right.
That's-
I agree with you,
I didn't
Chris.
think about it that way.
So there's one comment that maybe I could make that'll kind of show you where I'm coming from. If you are an LG CIO, then you've attended conferences and you've made an effort to build those hours, and then you've also made an effort to generate a project report and coordinate with Carl Vinson to the end point of that report, which is an acceptable report and document. And I think that's, as a minimum, that's something that's important to have. The CGCIO, that's going to be, your agency might not fund it. You might not have the available time to dedicate it. We do think it's important to have it, and we would love for everyone to achieve the CGCIO certification. So, it's like so that's why I feel like the LGCIO is a must-have, and we prefer you to have the CGCIO. And I think if there's a lot of people stepping up, want to be in a board position, and they've made that extra effort to be the CGCIO, that I think that should be something that's considered or preferred in the process.
And contrary to popular belief, it is a big commitment. And that's the other reason for, making sure that if your supervisor does realize that it's important to be at all these functions and to be a part of all this. And I as well concur that I have no problem in the world with technician level folks, because they were making the commitment and they are able to also bring an additional perspective to the board, so that we are able to serve the whole membership. So I don't have a problem with that at all.
Is it okay with everyone if we move on to the accountability section?
I have one more little comment. I mean, keep in mind, these are minimums, and that, the board membership is still subject to the vote from the entire membership.
Great. Thank you, Clark. If there's no other comments, if you would, Steve, please move on.
Yes. Then there was a section 3 that you'll see that has been highlighted and elaborated on, where officers shall serve for a period of 1 year or until their duly qualified successors are appointed or elected July 1st through June 30th. The office of third vice president is elected for a 5-year commitment and will progressively advance from third vice president to second to first to president to executive director. And that verbiage just never really was in there. So that was the reason for adding that. In the event of the vacancy in the executive board, the remaining members of the executive board may assume the responsibility or appoint someone for the balance of the unexpired term. The board can appoint interim third vice president for the balance of an unexpired term of 1 year. Heaven forbid one of us, has passes or has some other family thing that we're unable to be a part of things. We moved on, and we also elaborated on section 5B and added in there, that the officers elected will be president, first vice president, second vice president, third vice president, and executive director. And then section C, the secretary treasurer will be appointed by the Georgia GMIS elected board. And
Y'all are gonna hate me. I got comments. Y'all would have been better off having Forrest.
no, hey, the board is just trying to make sure that we have clarified, have things that are not ambiguous. So
Right.
your
Understood.
clarifications are fine.
So in section 5, we said election of officers shall be conducted in a regular May meeting. Okay, we're only electing one officer. So it shouldn't be officers. We're electing the third vice president, and per the section above, we're stepping up. And I think that needs to be spelled out in B as well. Officers elected will be, we're not electing a president, a first vice president, a second vice president, a third vice president, an executive director. We're electing a third vice president that steps up to those per the section above.
In section 3, though, it says that the officer shall serve for a period of 1 year. So technically, they're actually being elected again. And it's been tradition, basically, that this is the way it's just always worked, that it's a successive sort of step up through the process. And basically what the board was trying to do here is clarify what has been tradition into the actual bylaws.
But it says the office of the third vice president is elected for a 5-year commitment and will be progressively advanced from third vice president, second, first. Those just need to match.
Yeah, it also says that that they serve for a period of 1 year.
It just says a
I guess
5-year
it's just-
commitment,
they
not a
contrib-
5-year term.
It's not really a
That's
5-year
what-
term.
yeah.
It's really a 1-year term. It's a 5-year commitment, which is something different.
Is
So,
elected for 5 years. Those need to match, is all I'm saying. That you're saying two different things in the same statement.
So Clark, does in section 4 in May, even though I know you said they're just bumping up, are they approved by the body or they automatically move up?
I think they would be approved by the body.
So therefore, then it is an election. So maybe you just change section 4.
I'm good with either way. I'm just saying that those three, section 3 and 5, say two different things.
Well, this is Mike Howard, and just, Jeremy, I understand your point. Part of the discussion when we were at the retreat, and perhaps this does need further clarification, was that we were simply labeling, so that the classification of an elected officer were the positions that were elected versus appointed. And so maybe we didn't outline that correctly, because in what we're saying in 5C is that 2 of the folks that serve on the board are appointed. The rest of them are elected. And I think what you're indicating is we need to relook at the language, but one of the reasons for labeling them as elected was to make that distinguish them between being an elected official and an appointed official.
Right. That makes complete sense. I think we need to relook at the wording there.
Sure.
So you could just put something in section 3 saying approved by the body in May.
But also in section 3, we don't need to say that they serve for a period of 1 year and then say that they're elected for 5-year commitment.
Well, I mean, the thing is they're serving 1 year as third vice president, 1 year as second, 1 year and they're different positions. I think
But if you step up, you're not elected, you'd be approved.
Well, I think technically there's an election where you're actually electing that block of bodies.
Just something to think about. I mean, we can't vote today anyway, because if you look at the last section, you have to send it out with it 30 days before to everybody. So I think we've got a little time. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Nothing to be sorry about.
Yeah.
Remember I
that's the
said-
purpose of the-
Look at things with new eyes.
Hey, Mike, Howard,
Yes,
is UGA, I know they manage a bunch of other organizations. Do
yes.
they operate similar to us in a way that they have bylaws and that we could maybe look at to use as a template to make some of these changes?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, we have contracts with ACCG, GMA, clerks, tax assessors. Great question, Jason. Let me find out what other bylaws exist. Maybe we don't have to recreate them. We could borrow a paragraph from others. Sure.
Well, do we have, Jeremy, a recommendation on the verbiage for that section 3? That, we can that you can offer up, and or how does the body wish to proceed? Would there be just a hold on doing any approval, or approves specific sections to be updated and then revisit the other sections?
I could offer some recommendations. I did not rewrite anything, but I can offer that. But again, we can't vote today anyway, because we didn't get it 30 days in advance. If you look down in the last article for amendments, the executive board shall authorize the secretary treasurer to submit amendment in writing to the entire membership at least 30 days prior to the date on which the votes are to be cast. So we can't vote today anyway. So I think we might want to go back to the drawing board. I think we get comments today, go back, put those comments in, send it out, and then make sure we send it out in enough time to receive comments back, and then vote at the next meeting.
About now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we probably should just finish the review, Steve, and then table the vote on this until we get further cleanup on the changes, and then get proper dissemination to the membership 30 days prior to a vote call.
Right, and it's a good thing, because this is the first time we've discussed as a group. I mean, the only discussions that were previous to this were feedback from members wanting clarification, the boards discussed it, and now it's before you and open for edit.
I'm glad of the comments, specifically Jeremy. Don't worry about it. I'm glad for the comments, and that's why we're here talking about this, to try to help, bring that forward. To the other, if you all are using a color version, there is down in section 6, there was an addition of create and maintain a transition plan. Excuse me, we have been in section 3, 4, and 5, and in section 6, the duties of officers down in the E6, there was create and maintain a transition plan. Then following on over to G6, there was same thing, create and maintain a transition plan. And then I believe, well, there was a page break. That was all the significant changes that updates that we had worked on. I really would value any verbiage there, Jeremy, on that section 3 as to how we can better do that. And we can bring that together and put it out there.
I'll write something up and send it out. I did have a couple more comments on the rest. If we want, do we want to talk about that as a group, or you just want me to share those with you individually?
We'll go ahead and share them, and then what we can do is we could actually have some back and forth with the drafts until we come to a final draft everybody thinks is appropriate to bring to the next conference, and then we'll be done with that.
So I'll go over what I've got real quick. On page 9 in meetings in section 1, we need to add in there the ability to meet virtually. Because if you read, it says time and place, where technically virtual is not a place. I think we need to put some verbiage in there of allowing us to legally meet virtually.
We could call it places. I'm just joking with you.
But yeah, I just think we could, I know on another committee I'm on, we just recently added that just so we could have our butts covered, that if in there it says you're required to meet 2 times a year at said location, well, technically if we're virtual, it's not.
That's
And
good.
again,
So-
that's all up for debate on what it is, what it's not. But if it's in black and white and we got it spelled out, we don't have to worry about it.
Right. If you would, Jeremy, any comments or recommendations like that, put it in,
Yep.
an edited document and just send it. And we'll just keep sending iterations out until we all agree that to move forward with it.
Right. Also, section 3, I think we should change it from 5 members to 7 members, because 5 members means that the board could vote themselves. And I think it should be more than just the board. That means the board could get together and vote, because that's 5 different agencies. So I think we should raise that. That way it's a requirement to go past the board. Just a thought.
Right. So
I
would
can
you,
give a little bit of background on where that verbiage comes from and why it's 5, is that at the national level, it takes 5 agencies to form a chapter. And so I think this was probably taken at one point in time directly from nationals, because that's the minimum, requirements to form it.
Well, maybe we can change it to a percentage then.
Yeah,
Something where it's not just the board can vote. Nothing against the board.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And then in section 4, I think we need to spell out what voting means, because I know we had some discussion about one person from each agency. So like on B, where it says only agency representatives in good standing shall be eligible to vote. Okay, you say only agency representatives. Well, that could be construed as, well, we've got 4 people from our agency. We all represent our agency. So I think we need to spell out only agencies in good standing shall be eligible to vote. And then maybe in C, only 1 vote per eligible agency. And also, I think somewhere in there, we need to put a dictionary of what agency means, because like Clark, in your case, you work for the state. Well, the state is the agency. Well, what if we've got 2 different divisions from the state? Well, the word agency means agency. So does that mean the state gets 1 vote, or?
yeah, if you look,
I know I'm getting really technical, but.
no, but you're really not. It's good to bring it out. So it could be clarified, but if you look at the list of the agencies that are agencies who are paid organizations with GEMIS International, there's only 48 in the state of Georgia. There might be a city, there might be a county, there might be, for example, the state of Georgia Department of Agriculture is a paid agency, but also the state of Georgia Secretary of State is a separate agency. And they would vote, they each have 1 vote.
Right.
So but maybe the term they use at international, I believe, is organization. So maybe that's something we would consider changing in there.
I think section 3 under Article 1 discusses and sort of makes reference to Article 4 for actually what defines a membership. And that's a membership of GEMIS International.
Right.
And so in section 4, it does towns, cities, counties, and all units, board of commissioners, subordinate to the legislative board, other authorities.
Yeah, so Jeremy, let me give you some other examples, like instead of, like Cherokee County Water and Sewage Authority, right? Rather than that county. Of course, we have Georgia Department of Law is a paid organization. So you can see there's some, there's a lot more entities or agencies.
Yeah,
who
I
are
understand what we
possible.
mean. I just think the way that it's stated could be taken either way.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
think maybe
and I think
better
it'd be,
defining.
yeah, so if you have some verbiage that would better
Yeah,
define,
I'll
that
go
would be
through it
great. Yeah.
about that.
Brent Clark, I see both your points there, and I think they are valid. But Jeremy's got the point there that it's CYA. It shouldn't be ambiguous. There should be something maybe about all these different organizations that can be members, and even if it's just something about having a paid membership is what clarifies. But I see your point as well, that it isn't just the state, it's each agency that is a member.
Right.
If you read Article 4 under membership, it kind of spells those things out. And there's probably some room for further clarification and further
I
improvement.
agree. Yeah.
But like where I'm at, well, under the section C where it says commissioner directed state agencies, I think that can be interpreted to be any kind of any agency that has a commissioner head of it. Such as, which is basically every single all of the 85 departments within the state have a commissioner that's the head of that agency.
Good responses. I'm glad to see that, that it has been read more deeply because that's certainly why the board was trying to revisit this.
And so I would say this, Jeremy, if since you have taken an interest in this, that maybe do some research also at the GEMIS International level. So you could, and I think we could do a lot of clarifying and taking ambiguity out of our document, but we still need to consider what's in that GEMIS International document.
That's right. And I think, Mike, from UGA, that if we've got somebody else that y'all do somebody else's bylaws that we can piggyback off of and not reinvent the wheel, I think that would help as well.
Yeah, and Jeremy, I just a clarification of that. We have possession of the bylaws, and we have possession of the Georgia GEMIS bylaws. Really, the bylaws belong to the board and the membership, but we're the partner with them. Right. And in fact, to that point, when you send your messages about your suggestions on these bylaws to the board, make sure you copy me and Tiffany.
Will do.
Because part of our role is to assist the board with those kind of things. So I can find out and get copies of the bylaws that belong to like the Clerks Association and things like that. And because we help them the same way we help Georgia GEMIS. So we'll be a partner in that.
So was there anything else to cover with that, Steve?
No, sir. Basically, and we've reviewed that we needed a little update, and we've gotten some outstanding points, and we will.
So if I may say so, I think that we could entertain a motion to table the changes until the next meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
from Jonathan and Steve, a second. Any further discussion?
Brett, there's a hand raised in the chat there. It looks like Nathan Todd got his hand up.
Okay, Jason, is there
Yeah, that
anybody?
was from him, his comment earlier. I don't think it's supposed to be up right now.
Okay. All right, is there any other comments before we vote? Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of tabling, raise your hand. Opposed? Likewise? I didn't see any opposition, so it's unanimous. We'll table that. Thank you very much for your discussion on that matter. And so let's move forward to, I wanted to include on the agenda the awards recipients from our previous virtual conference, and I just wanted to briefly go over those. You might recall that we had 4 local awards, Georgia GEMIS Awards, and it's interesting how long it actually took to get our plaques. And Steve is going to make arrangements for us to come to the agencies who are willing to have us in person. But we have the Outstanding Professional Award, which is Tamika Allen, Augusta. Is there a way you can show these awards, Jonathan? So Jonathan's going to try to show these awards.
Which one? Use this camera?
Yeah, there you go, Jonathan.
No.
All right. There you go.
Yep, I'm just getting the background off. All right, which one we doing?
Okay, we got Tamika Allen, the Outstanding Professional Award for 2020. Okay, so the awards, I think they look really nice, and they actually are real wood this time, and they are a little larger than previous awards. And so congratulations again to Tamika for that. We also have the Best Practices Award, which is Henry County Computer and Communication Systems Usage Policies and Procedures, which is congratulations again for that Best Practices Award. We have the Government to Government Award for the City of Tifton, Document Restructuring. Right, and we look forward to getting that to you. And the final Georgia award is the Government to Citizens Columbia County 3D City Model. Yeah, there you go. And so you might recall that how we have been operating in the last few years, we emulate the GEMIS International standards and practices for award submissions. The board unanimously voted to recommend all of these award winners for the GEMIS International 2020 award, right? And 3 of these award winners won GEMIS International awards, and you should have already received those awards from GEMIS International. And there was a 4th award that was submitted at recommendation from the board, which you might recall we had no G to B award submittals in the local level, and Macon Bibb County submitted a G to B at the international level. So we actually had 3 winners at the international level, and you should have received those awards. And if you would please take a picture of your awards and send that to us so we could post that on the website. Okay, so Jonathan will move forward to the next item. And congratulations again to all the award winners. Jonathan, marketing, website, monthly training update.
Thank you, Brett.
We missed Geek Track.
We missed Geek Track.
That's next. That's after the marketing.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead with ours. So the marketing update really was involving, making sure that the website, the Georgia GEMIS website, was up to date and current. Thank you so much to Clayton County and Jennifer for her help in creating that, getting it changed and updated. It's a full-time gig to keep that going, but I think we're slowly but surely continuing to update it, keep it fresh, and at least keep it current with, and Larry, your network bandwidth is low, it says. The other things we're doing on that front is clearly the Georgia GEMIS listserv. So if you guys are not part of that, I'll send another note or put it on the website, but drop us drop me an email at jonathan@georgiagemus.org. And let me know if you want that link. We can enroll you. This is a good tool for everybody that's part of the Georgia chapter to share communications, ask questions, lean on each other in an email listserv type of format. And so far, the responses I've gotten from a lot of different people are relatively positive. There are going to be people that don't want it, and that's fine. You can set up your preferences to do a digest to one email at the end of the day that you get everything in one single email. But it's a tool. Again, it's only as useful as we use it and implement it. So if you have questions for your colleagues within the Georgia GEMUS chapter, we highly encourage you to utilize that. In addition to that, for those who are not aware or have not joined us, we are doing monthly training in the virtual world. So we are coming up on our third. Now, we did schedule it technically for the week before this conference, but just technically it just didn't work out. So I do want to set a reminder for everybody that the next one of those is scheduled for next Wednesday, the 4th. So put on your calendars, if you would, the day after the election, that we will do a lunch and learn type of cyber training at 12 noon on the 4th of November. It's the last one we did was to the right of the bang, which meant, what happens after you've been hit with something. The goal for this conversation will be to the left of the bang. So what should we do? What should we be doing before we get hit? So I think it's just one more in that series of discussions, which is going to be pretty good. And then we'll do the last of that series in December. But please put in your calendars and your schedules for 12 noon on the 4th of November, and an invite will go out. Hopefully tomorrow, but it may be Monday. But it should be a good one. And on the other front, we have obviously the Facebook page that has been active this week, which is great. A couple winners of some gift cards came from that. It's just another way, right? I know there's been a request for LinkedIn group, and I think we can absolutely do that. Whatever ways you guys want to communicate, to evangelize what we do, I think we're willing to do that. The goal really is to keep everybody informed, make the communication between each other a little easier, and that doesn't always look like the same thing for everybody. So I think there's absolutely a way to do it, and there's a way to keep it fresh. And we don't want to overwhelm people with a lot of details, but we want everybody to have the information when they need it. Okay, so that's my end of my report for you, Brett.
Thank you, Jonathan. I don't think Jonathan mentioned this, but it's been a high volume of participation in these. I mean, we actually had 48 participate in one of those sessions, which was excellent, and a lot of good feedback. Did anyone have any comments or questions regarding the marketing website and monthly training update?
I just had a quick question, Jonathan. You said the next information session is going to be the day after the vote, but several of it, or I'm not sure about the rest of the membership, but we actually participate in the vote, and that's going to be a long night for us. So, and then we also have a board meeting the next day. So I didn't know if other people would have a problem getting to it or not.
Well, and I'm with you, and I don't think it's, I think we're kind of stuck with the scheduling of the host that's going to be presenting.
Okay.
It's just a tough one to get everybody to agree on. We do record. I have not actually published the last one. Just to prep for this. This event.
Yeah.
But they are recorded. I'll make sure they're available on the website for everybody.
Yeah. Jamie, and the previous recordings I've seen are pretty high quality, but I think the only problem you'll have is there won't be any interactive. You'll be watching what transpired,
Okay.
So yeah. So if there's nothing else, does anybody have anything else on that subject? So let's move on. Mike Hicks, our second vice president, is going to talk about Geek Track and the certification program. So if you would, Mike.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think I know probably 90% of the people here, but for those new faces, again, I'm Mike Hicks, the second vice president. One of the reasons you didn't see me in this conference because I've been moderating the Geek Track session for the last two conferences, and we've had a great turnout. The participation, all 6 of the participants were fully engaged. Deidre Scott did an awesome job talking about Wireshark and network security. Guys, just a FYI, remember, Carl Vinson Institute is going to mail you your certificate, so they are coming. And also in Geek Track, we had 3 winners. 3 winners came out of our Geek Track session, so we were happy about that. And as I was putting the information into the chat, those guys were excited. Like they were asking me, Hicks, when is the next joy? And did we win? So Kevin Aker was our last winner. Kevin, congratulations to you. Adam Jackson out of Macon-Bibb County and Thomas Gibson out of Clayton County. Those were the 3 winners. So we were excited about what we did in Geek Track. Deidre Scott, he is a full instructor out of Augusta Tech in Augusta, Georgia. And Deidre did an awesome job of taking those guys from Zoom over into Moodle to make sure that transition was smooth. And those guys were able to get into the lab, and those things were great. So we also been thinking about expanding the certification process as well. So the board, we've been tossing around some A+ certifications, some Network Plus certifications, some Lean Six Sigma first level certifications, some CompTIA certifications. So we're kind of playing around with those thoughts, folks. So by the next conference in the spring, we're going to have some definitive of what we'll be able to offer. So we're looking for some companies that we're going to partner with that can offer those certifications. So it's going to be more than just what you learn those 2 or 3 days, because some of those certifications, you can't get them in 3 days. It takes about 3 or 4 months to do that. So that's a time frame between the conferences, and we're thinking about offering some other certifications in Geek Track. So it went great. Let me see my notes here. Yeah, we talked about certifications. Any questions about Geek Track? All right.
Okay, Mike, well, you just continue on. Mike is going to give us an update of the strategic plan.
Right. So also, folks, we had an awesome retreat a couple of weeks ago. And out of that retreat were born some goals and objectives. We want you to know we're working on your behalf. We're coming up with some goals and objectives for the group. And some of the things we tossed around were implement membership referral program, implement a conference referral program, something to do with the attendees. So we're kind of stewing that together. And once we get these goals and objectives together, we're going to reveal those to you. But just know, during the retreat, we started to really think about, hey, we got to come up with some goals and objectives and list those on the website so the participants can see where we're going as a group. So some of those things we talked about in our retreat. We already have a vision and mission statement. We haven't posted that on the website yet, but we would do that by the spring conference. We were happy to kind of get our brains together and come up with a vision statement and a mission statement for the group, and we'll have that posted. Other than that, I think that's about it, Brett. Anybody got any questions for me? No? Okay, Brett, back to you.
So as we're moving forward with, kind of going back to the bylaws changes, maybe it's appropriate that we send out some of our information of what our strategic plan is and communicate that and get some feedback. Okay, so let's move to conference feedback section, and we'll let what we're interested in now is we can tell you we've talked internally here at our location. From our standpoint, we've had a very successful conference. We've been in a place where we could socially distance. We've had all the the support that we needed to be successful from behind the scenes. But what we'd like to do is just let Jason moderate and ask you some questions and get some feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. The rundown of how you see this conference and maybe some suggestions of what to do or not to do in the future. Jason, if you would, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to start on my screen and go across from there. So the first one on mine is Nathan. And what we'll do is we'll just take the organizations together. So everybody who's here, so Karen and Nathan, if you guys want to comment on it.
Well, I'll comment. The only thing I heard mostly from was the vendors. Nobody went to visit them in the exhibit booths. They might have had one or two or they had none at all. So that was kind of a disappointment there.
Yeah, I can personally say I got to go see one vendor, and I know that's personal issues and not making time for it. But I can't imagine that I was a standalone person in that front. And I'm with Karen. It seems like the vendors are given these conferences are for us and for our education and our camaraderie, but vendors are what makes that possible. And if we don't all do a better job of getting together with the vendors, it ain't gonna work. I will say that the Zoom rooms, it just also seemed like the one I got into, they were thrilled to have somebody there, and they'd maybe been sitting there for a while with no one. Yeah.
Are we supposed to add to this, or are we supposed to wait our turn? Because I agree with Nathan that we need to
Well,
make
Chris-
our vendors feel like it's worth it, but
Chris,
I only got in 2 or 3 of them.
So yeah, well, when we get to you, you can just say your comments. And even if it's just repeating what somebody else said, that's fine. The meeting is being recorded and we will be able to transcribe and take action on the comments if it's warranted. So yeah, so just give us just on that. The next one is Aaron, Lowndes County. Is he on? Nope. Okay. Tamika? Alan? Thought I seen her on here. Okay.
She's on.
I was going to try and use the list of members so we got them all because I don't know what everybody's organization is. So I believe Larry, Grace, and Julianne, you're all from the same county, Columbia, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys are next.
I'll let ladies go first.
I would suggest maybe yesterday we had sort of some long blocks of time that didn't get used up. Maybe on the Wednesday portion of the conference, you could offer to let the vendors have like a 15-minute sales pitch or explanation as to what their product is. We had a lot of downtime yesterday. So maybe that would be a way, give them a set time that they presented to everybody.
I mean, and then I enjoyed how the breakout sessions were handled this time around with this conference. It kind of made everything a little bit more fluid. Maybe using breakout sessions of sorts with those vendors during those chunks of time where this sounds terrible. People don't really have a choice, quote unquote, but you kind of get that speed dating experience of whether or not you wanted to sit in and listen to somebody's spiel. You were in that group of 5 that was getting shuffled between people and could then schedule a meeting later on, or choose to go back if something that was mentioned caught your eye.
I'll go ahead and start then. I'm not a fan of the conference being virtual. I like to go back in person, so I'll be the first one to say that. Secondly, to reinforce the vendor scenario, I know a lot of them kind of have had frustration with us or expressed frustration that they're not getting quite what they used to with the in-person because they don't get enough face time. So throwing this back to the membership, participation helps. I know I didn't go to every vendor, and I tried to go to a couple. But if everybody did the same thing, we should be able to cover vendors to give them the opportunity to see some members and get some face time with us.
Okay. We'll go back to Mika.
I have no comments.
Okay. John Matowski.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Steve Sykes. You're muted, Steve.
Thank you. Let me let Brian Linton go first from our group of McDonough and see what Brian thinks. Your cue, Brian. We'll let Brian come in when he can. Like Larry and Jonathan, I know we all prefer the in-person conferences. It's been a struggle trying to pull together the virtuals, trying to also do those in a thrifty fashion. I'm so pleased with the number of folks that have attended. As far as we do, I wish there was a better way to come up with how to deal with vendors, how to give them a better opportunity to speak with us, and I don't have all those answers. I mean, we're even looking at, if we're forced to go with virtuals, there are some other options that cost a little more money to do with virtual meetings and stuff. So we're going to try to look at all that and welcome any, I hope, any suggestions from you guys. But I'm just glad to see everyone and that everyone is doing well. Brian, do you have anything to add? That's all from McDonough for now.
Okay. Chris Addicks. Now it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. Okay. Yeah, I saw the chat from, I think it's from Nathan, about the way they did it at the International. And that actually did work pretty good. You know, I went, you know, I attended the International one as well. And it seemed like I got to see every vendor that I, you know, tried to. This time around, you know, I kind of gave up early because I would go to one and it'd either be locked out, or I'd go to one and I didn't get a response. And I finally gave up around 5 o'clock or 5:10 and said, well, you know, they're not working. I'm not going to do it. I saw maybe 4 or 5 total. Saw Katie Simpson 3 times. No, I don't know why. It kept clicking in on hers. So maybe trying to do it a little differently. I mean, I certainly value the vendors, you know, sponsorship, and we need to make sure that they get something out of it. The conference was, you know, everybody wants the in-person one because, you know, it's the sidebar stuff that doesn't seem to, you know, that we're missing, and that was probably of equal or more value than some of the presentations. The presentations were good. You can do a training presentation online without any real effort, but, or not without effort, but I mean, it works as well as being in the room and listening to it in my experience. But it's that sidebar stuff, the casual things that just kind of come up. I'm really looking forward to the day that we can get back to doing them live. Otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good conference, though. I liked the way Wednesday went. You know, I thought that was pretty good.
Okay. Mike Hicks.
Actually, I think everything went great. I agree with what some of the other participants said. I think going in and out of the vendor session could probably been a little bit smoother. So that's something we'll work to perfect behind the scenes for the next conference.
All right, Jeremy, Columbus.
Overall, I think it was awesome. Like it was mentioned earlier, the breakout rooms were flawless. And honestly, out of all the conferences I've been to, I think the participation was one of the best that I've seen within the breakout rooms and the just back and forth with the instructor and all that. So I think overall it was great. I mirror everybody else with we can work on how to engage the vendors better, but we're figuring this out. So I think we're doing a great job. And I think Kevin and Darian are both on here who are in 2 other tracks. I don't know if they've got any comments.
Yeah, I would just echo what Jeremy said. I thought it went really well. The breakout sessions were good, worked really flawlessly. Obviously the vendor, I agree with what everybody else has said, but I thought this went, really well. And hopefully in the spring we can finally meet everybody in person, at least me, because I'm new. So
I stopped off at a couple of the vendors. Our Geek Track stopped at 4 o'clock, and I thought that the vendors were supposed to be there from 4 to 6. So right after the Geek Track, I would go to one of the vendors and they weren't available. I tried 3 or 4 of them. They weren't available. They weren't there yet. And then there were a couple times that I guess a UGA person let me into the room because they thought I was the vendor. So that was the only thing that I did not like. I was able to talk to who I needed to. Some of the people, I guess on the first day, Monday, the vendors, they weren't sure what they were supposed to be doing. One of the vendors asked me, what are some of the other vendors doing? Because I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. So maybe for giving some input into what they can or should be doing in these breakout sessions. Are they supposed to be one-on-one, or are they supposed to be group discussion? Maybe providing them with some more information.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, I missed the good, bad, the ugly. I think we all benefit from that. So I think maybe if we do this virtual again, that we figure out a way to add that back in, because I enjoy hearing everybody else's struggles just like we're struggling. So, and I think with COVID, that would have been a really good, bad, ugly. So
I concur.
Probably would have been a really long good, the bad, the ugly as well. So, Clark.
I'll echo Jeremy's comments about good, bad, and ugly. Missed that. I think that was. I think we could certainly do that. And who else mentioned? Well, Nathan and I think others too about that. We thought that the vendor halls with internationals went pretty well, and maybe that's something we can look to try to replicate. Also enjoyed the networking suites for those that attended those. Those people that did attend those, we did get a lot of those sidebars and extracurricular type conversations in outside, and so I would encourage everybody to attend those next time. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Clark. Ben.
How's everybody? So same thing with the vendors. Like I said before earlier today, maybe one possibility would have the vendors come to us rather than we go to the vendors, give them time slots. So that where there isn't, that way, if somebody's having a problem connecting, it's one person, not 40 people. Second thing, during especially on Monday, the break times, a lot of times I know for me, I'll schedule things during the breaks, a phone call and such, and the break times didn't match up with the schedule. So that was just a minor thing. And that was pretty much it.
Okay. Jamie Pownell.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the things that have been said. The only thing that, and this is on me, the only thing that hasn't been said that I wish I would have done was stayed home and not come into work. I've been interrupted constantly throughout, every day because I'm at work. So that's on me, and I'll know that for in the spring. But that's really the only thing I have that hasn't been mentioned yet.
Okay. William Rutherford.
Hey guys, the good is I just want to let you know, I think you guys did a fantastic job of putting this together between the board and Carl Vinson and the folks that we had come together to deliver. Fantastic. I thought it flowed very well. Some of the bad, I'm going to kind of blend the bad and the ugly together for me. Dedicating this much time virtually is hard. Especially, I mean, just because you're not there, it's really hard a lot of times, especially for me, to separate what's going on here, whether it's at my house or my office with the conference. And also there with the kind of bad and the ugly is, I'm sure I'm not the only one, is just Zoom fatigue. Being online and meetings constantly is just, I don't know, it almost feels too much. So I'm guilty of not really seeing the vendors because when the session's over, I'm checking out, either catching up with work or heading back to deal with my kids or what have you. So, when you're there, it's a little easier to kind of stay away from that. So those were my points.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Short.
So going off of the vendor sessions, it's just when we broke out initially in our groups, whether it be a 4-man group or a 5-man group, kudos to just merging everyone from the main Zoom room into the group room. That was very convenient rather than finding the correct breakout link as we experienced in spring. When we go to that breakout room, already being in the 4 or 6-man group, potentially go ahead and exempt one of those groups and shift those straight into a vendor. And that way they can get that experience that way. Overall, I appreciate y'all's time and it's worked out really, really well. Thank you.
Okay. Brian Conley. Brian? All right, we'll come back to him. Aaron, I just seen you joined. Do you want to comments about the conference?
Hey, wow, nothing like being put on the spot, huh? Sorry I was late. I had a bunch of stuff catch up this morning. Being gone all week was tough. You know the drill. You get punished for time off. Yeah, actually, it exceeded my expectations. I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect a virtual conference to be that awesome, but I was impressed. I mean, I think I stated this before. It was a different kind of good. In some ways, not being sitting at tables and being able to do that instantaneous side networking and talk to folks right there took away some of the networking, but in other ways, I got a lot more out of the classes than I think I would have if we'd have been sitting in a conference room. So it was good. Like I just say it was a different kind of good. I can't wait till we can come back together again, but you guys did very, very good for having to work with what you worked with. It was fantastic. Good job.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. And so Clayton County, so Takia, did you want to make any comments about it?
My comments were pretty much in line with everyone else's, especially about the vendors and the
Okay.
breakout rooms. I enjoyed the breakout session compared to the first conference. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll echo the other comments as well, but I will, I want to point out that the UGA and the Carl Vinson team did a really good job with kind of hosting everything and kind of putting it together, and then the board here with their planning. So it was, I thought overall, you know, obviously we all like getting together, but you know, when we can't, this worked out really well. So I appreciate all the effort and time that went into that.
Jason, this is Mike. Can I just jump in there? There's been a couple questions on the chat. So we will send out a survey of sorts, an inquiry, judging or asking for people's perspective on would they be able to do this in person in May? If so, is it a financial thing? I'm sorry, or if they're not able to do that, is it a financial thing? Is it an interest thing? Anyway, just a general answer to folks. Yeah, UGA will send something out gauging your interest. The plan is to do it in Athens. I think you all are aware of that. So short answer, we'll get something out to see what your interest and ability is in terms of being able to attend in May.
Okay. And I seen Deborah come in. I don't know if she's still on or not. If not, David West, do you guys have any comments for the?
I agree with what everybody said, and the UGA Carl Vinson group. My goodness, that is awesome. We've been doing teams, you know, ever since the COVID started, and this is the best teleconference that I've seen. The breakout rooms was awesome. How seamless it was to bounce back into. They did a fantastic job. I think Deborah piped in too. I don't know if she's still there.
I don't see her connected anymore.
She got back off. Okay, but yeah, I agree with everybody else.
Okay. Brian Conley. No. So that's everybody that's connected. So.
Thank you, Jason. So if there's no other comments on that, we'll move to future conferences, topics, and locations. As you can see, we are, and like Mike mentioned, we are scheduled for spring for May 2 through 6 at the Graduate. So, and a lot of you have been there before. GEMIS International and the GEMIS 50th anniversary celebration in August 2021 at Walt Disney World. And it coincides with Disney's 50th anniversary. And fall 2021 is October 17 through 21 at the Savannah High at Savannah. Is there any comments or feedback from anyone on those conference locations or your schedule?
Will you guys be sending that out in an email?
We will. And like Mike mentioned earlier, we will also be surveying not only this conference, but there'll be a survey, online survey that comes out. And like Mike said, we'll ask you, do you have intentions to attend the spring conference? So we can get some idea about moving forward with that. Anybody else?
Yeah, we'll make sure that this is also on the website for
Right.
everybody's information. So.
Right. So, you know, I guess we're near the end there, which is, you know, the closing remarks. So let me share with you some things. My feedback on some things is I agree with William. When I have a really good schedule and it's followed, I really like that. I can plan other things and I like to follow the schedule. As far as time and time allocation, I purposely took annual leave for this conference so that I would not be interrupted and I could focus solely on, you know, attending the LGCIO training, but also I wanted to have the time to move in and out of Geek Track and other things that were going on and just see what's going on and not have zero interruptions. And I literally had one interruption, and that was a phishing attack on my county manager, but that was it. I mean, I was able to dedicate my time. I can make my personal observation is this is one of the best conferences. Just the participation from all the people involved in the conference was just extraordinary. I mean, we even had people who joined us for dinner or after dinner, and 9 or 10 people, and we had lots of good texts and emails and feedback and phone calls from people all during the conference, just people trying to make the conference the best it could be, and that was awesome. And I'll just let you know from a personal standpoint, everybody here in this room with me and your board members who are at a remote location, 100% dedication to the effort. And the same thing for Carl Vinson. Just people going above and beyond the call of duty to make this a good conference and just to alleviate some of your concern about not having that social interaction or face-to-face communications. And so what I would like to ask, there's one last thing I'll do, and then I'll ask the board if any of them would like to make any comments. And there was a final drawing for participation at this meeting. And it was actually one of the people who participated and gave us feedback, and that's Jamie Pownell. So we've done, during this conference, we've done 6 drawings for gift cards, and Jamie's the final drawing. And congratulations, Jamie. Yeah. And so what I'll do is I'll just open the floor before we have a motion to adjourn to the board members and Jason, if they have any feedback or comments.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment or two. I think what you guys don't know is I think there's been a pretty good dedication from the team. And of course, as you guys know, this is my first conference on the board, so I'm trying to soak in and learn and try not to irritate too many people too fast. Not always going to promise that's happening, but what I can tell you is everybody that I've come across and what I've learned in this short, brief time is that there is no doubt that the goal is to improve. And there's no doubt that the goal is to provide a high level of value to the conferences twice a year. Who would have imagined we'd been in this situation, right? Last one we did in the spring, it was a urgent emergency change, and it was a month they had to plan that. And I think the board, specifically to their credit, was able to pivot and learn from everything we had that conference, and the conversations to get us to today was amazing. So I want to tip my hat off to the board for doing such great work to coordinate this, along with Carl Vinson as a partner of that. But what you guys don't understand is I think the passion is to continue to make this a better conference every year. And we're kind of stuck in a virtual world at the moment, but I think it would be pretty safe for me to say everyone is interested in a real in-person conversation and a conference next time we can do it. So rest assured, we're going to push forward that if we can. But again, safety and risk is always a variable with the decisions made. So just know that what you can't see on this side, I'm seeing for the first time, and there's a heart for genuine improvement. So thank you to the board members that have done such a good job so far and helped me learn where I'm supposed to be at certain times that I don't make it. But that's all I've got.
Mike wanted to make one comment, Brett, before we get adjourned.
And that is real quick relative to surveys, as we typically have done both in person when I can hand you the piece of paper, and in the spring when we did this electronically, you will get a survey from UGA asking you for your evaluation feedback, just in general. And so in fact, you'll get several options. You'll get an option to provide feedback on Monday, and you get an option to provide feedback about Tuesday and about Wednesday. So whichever sessions you were in, same thing with CG, you'll have options to provide feedback on those sessions that you were a participant in. And please, 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 we take that stuff really seriously. Please take a moment and provide your comments like you've done today, because as the board has mentioned, we can only get better if you let us know. So that will be coming out in the next few days, and just take a moment and fill that out and return it. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank UGA for their assistance in helping us pull this off. And I know the board has worked really hard to do what we could to make this as valuable as it was to the membership. Like y'all, I miss the in-person. Y'all are my family. So I really personally can't wait till we get back in person. But thank y'all for attending and participating, and making this as best as we can, all things considered.
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the sentiments that's been said before. We are constantly looking to try to improve this conference for you guys. So in the spring, I'm hoping that we all can meet in person. But if we do have to go back to a virtual conference, just know we'll work just as hard as we did on this conference to make that one a success. And I also want to give kudos to the University of Georgia Carl Vince Institute team. You guys don't know how hard they were working behind the scenes just to make sure that we had no major hiccups to pull this thing off. So to Tiffany and Mike and Annalise and her team, thank you guys. You guys did a lot of work behind the scenes. So thanks again.
Mike, one thing, where is the Hawaiian shirt?
I'm sorry. I guess I was trying to project a more professional image online. In person, I'm a different person. So I'm sorry, Steve, my apologies. And rest assured, I will make a note on my calendar when you see me in May, virtual or in person, you will see the tropical shirt.
Okay. Is there anything else from anyone? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Brett.
Jason, motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I don't think there's any discussion. So all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed likewise. It's unanimous. Until next time, take care, everybody. Be safe.
Thank y'all. Be safe.
See
All
you,
right,
folks.
bye.
You'll see me
Bye,
next
everyone.
year. You'll see me next year. I won't be doing Geek Track. See you. Bye.
He doesn't say he said that, but he doesn't think he will.